Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for our top 8 match, and I'm really excited to bring you guys Nicholas Borghi, also known as Lightcore, who we haven't seen on stream yet today, and then Anthony Rossano, and we have seen him earlier. He has that really interesting team.
The Steely Spirit team.
With the Steely Spirit, which we didn't really touch on earlier today, which I do want to talk about a little bit. So Steely Spirit boosts the power of your allies' steel moves, which is why Anthony has those 4 steel-type Pokemon on his team.
That's really cool. That Berserker is a kind of a neat Pokemon. It's usually, I think its best knit so far has been for use in max raids, where you can use a Berserker and a bunch of other Berserker, and then maybe like a Zacian or something. But clearly working out for Anthony here. He is in top cut, I believe, one of these 6-1s today. So only dropping 1 set so far, so maybe he's onto something here.
I mean, maybe. There's a lot of times too. You'll prep for a lot of standard teams when you're playing, and you're like, all right, this is how I beat Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult, and this is how I beat Durant Milotic, and then you're like, oh, I don't know how I beat Aegislash, Berserker, Bisharp.
Quadruple Steel.
That escapes me. That escapes this team.
I don't know. Do you not have quadruple steel flowcharts for all your teams, Maeve?
Sadly, no. I have 0 flowcharts.
I have 0 teams, so it's okay.
Pretty much the same here. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit. Nicholas, of course, if you guys don't know, Nicholas has 4 regional top 8 finishes. He's 3 times World Invite. He won in 2015 the New York, New Jersey Invitational. In 2017, he was the runner-up to that same tournament. While Anthony has a really, really great set of locals runs, a couple of PC wins. I know, great MSS PC finishes. He in 2016, he told me he was sadly 1 point short for his World Invite.
That's so sad.
That's rough. That is one thing that you never want to, never want to hear, never want to have happen to. But other than that, both of these players are really incredible. We really had the pleasure of watching Anthony's really wild team this morning on stream. That felt like forever ago. But I'm super excited to see what he brings.
Me too, yeah. Both these players have a lot of success here in the New York, New Jersey area, up in the Northeast. And clearly, showing it off today. They're here, both in top cut, looking to make a deep run here. It's really cool to see all these local players doing well. Like, obviously, this is more of a local tournament, but there are some people that try to travel in, and they're very successful defending their region here today.
Yeah, team preview coming here for Anthony. Like we said, he's got that Bisharp, the Ludicolo, the Pelipper, the Durant, the Berserker, and the Aegislash. While Nick has the Hitmontop, Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult, Gyarados, and Rotom-Mow.
I didn't know people that weren't named James Evans were allowed to use Hitmontop. This is a revelation here today.
James Evans avoided top cuts so that Nick
there we go. We got to have one. Like this quadruple steel team is really cool. We've been talking about Durant all day and how it's just a terrifying Pokemon to play against. And I mean, even if, like with Steely Spirit, it's even more so. Like that max steel spike is going to be doing so much damage. Luckily for Nick, he has actually a bunch of steel resist on his team. The Excadrill, the Gyarados, the Rotom Cut, all of those, stack up pretty well against steel types. They could be some pretty strong options for Nick. Unfortunately for Anthony, that Excadrill is probably going to be a big deal here because we all know that Steel, kind of weak to ground. Those 3 Steel types not named Durant are all much slower than Excadrill. So that could be a reason that Anthony might want to lean into that rain mode a little bit. But there's a lot of interaction here between these teams, even though there's the 4 Steel types might not indicate so.
Yeah, Anthony's showing both modes this morning, using both a Durant and a Dynamax, and also going for that Ludicolo Dynamax in his game too, when he had to switch up his mode, knowing that, Durant seems good, but it doesn't work here, and I've got to change up my tactics. Both of these trainer cards, Anthony is much better. Nick, Nick, step your game up. Don't go for the plaid background. This isn't Christmas.
I think one of the strengths about Anthony's team is that it's like really hard to predict what's coming. Like the only reasonable core you could think of on that team would be the Pelipper Ludicolo, and after that, it's kind of a free-for-all.
Nick going for that Dragapult and Togekiss here, while we see the Berserker and Durant, and the Berserker, of course, holding that air balloon. So 2 interesting things, the Durant and Berserker, like you said, being a really big threat, but we don't exactly know what type of moves Nicholas has on the Dragapult or the Togekiss if he's running something like a Max Flare on either of them.
Right, both of these Pokemon can reasonably run Fire-type moves. We saw Jeremy's Dragapult earlier in the day using the Flamethrower against, I'm blanking against who we played against, but he also packing a Durant. So a pretty good option there. Dragapult is one of the few Pokemon that's faster than Durant. Can easily threaten it with a Flamethrower before taking something like a Max Steel Spike. We do have the huge Max Steel Spike option thanks to that Steely Spirit. I believe Berserker does have access to Fake Out, which could buy a turn for Durant, but against a switching Pokemon and a Ghost-type Pokemon, not going to help.
Nick swaps out that Togekiss, bringing in Hitmontop, getting a really important Intimidate down onto that Durant right there. And I do believe Jeremy played Caleb, who was also running that Durant team.
Yep.
Yeah, so of course a lot of New England locals that we're bringing up here. Caleb is going to Dynamax. Caleb. I'm so sorry.
Let
me rewind. Yeah. Let me see. The Dynamax Dragapult here for Nick, though. Dragapult, of course, is one of the few Pokemon that's faster than Durant.
Right.
So that is going to be interesting, you know, if Nick can get off something really strong like a Max Flare into that Durant, taking it out really early and not having to worry about it. And Anthony here is going to Dynamax, assuming it's that Durant there. Durant players love to send their Durant out Dynamax to turn 1. That's really the prime strategy for them.
Yeah, it's going to come down to what this Dragapult set is. If it does have something like a Max Flare, it might be an early end for this Durant here. Even the Berserker really doesn't want to take a Max Flare if that's coming out from this Dragapult. Even if it doesn't carry a fire move, Max Phantasm is also very strong against both of these Pokemon as well.
Yeah, if this Berserker went for the fake out, the Hitmontop switch was really good because it doesn't have to worry about, you know, not getting an attack off. The Max Flare here going into that Durant, that is going to do a ton of damage. If that is a one-hit, it is a one-hit knockout. That Durant is already out of the game. Anthony not going to be able to have that powerhouse of Max Steel Spikes coming from that Hustle Durant, getting the Sun Up as well. So that is just a great turn 1. Nick knowing that Dragapult could be faster than the Durant, knowing what his main threat is, that Berserker probably going for a fake out, so making the right call on which Pokemon he Dynamax.
Yeah, huge turn for Nick. He makes that fake out entirely worthless, you know, switching that slot. Also gets the Intimidate on the Berserker, which is nice, but more importantly, entirely wasting Anthony's Dynamax. You know, even though he never used a Max move that doesn't like reset the Dynamax counter, he used it and it is now gone. So Nick now still has 2 turns of his Dynamax with this Dragapult. You know, Ludicolo comes in. If the Pelipper's in the back, it will be able to outspeed that Dragapult, but not even close to knocking it out in that Max form, and Dragapult will be able to fire off another strong Max move, maybe something like a Max Wormwind or Phantasm.
Yeah, I think almost any of other Nick's Max moves that he has in the back besides Max Flare are going to be really important for boosting his side of the field up before, you know, any of Anthony's Pokemon come in, unless he brings that Pelipper in terms of Berserker instead, you know, to get that speed up. Hitmontop switching out here, bringing that Togekiss back in, so that is going to be a pretty smart play for him, able to have those follow me's up the next turn. Fake out here going into the Togekiss, another fake out call, so that double fake out not really doing a whole lot for Anthony at this point. The Max Phantasm going into the Ludicolo does over half of its health, and that is going to be massive. Yeah,
these fake outs really aren't going well for Anthony so far. Nick playing very well around them. He even had his own fake out pressure with a Hitmontop that turn, but knowing that he would very likely be outsped by that Ludicolo, he opts to, you know, not let his Hitmontop get faked out and take some damage. Now, the Iron Head coming from the Berserker at -1 does, you know, pretty good chunk to Dragapult. You can tell that probably would have done around, you know, 70-80% if it wasn't in max form, but thankfully that extra HP from the max form gives it another turn to survive.
Yeah, and of course, not even switching that Pelipper in or anything if he does have it in the back. Hitmontop coming back again, getting another Intimidate off into this Berserker, which is, you know, those are really stacking up. That Berserker hasn't come out of this game yet. That Berserker's been in since turn 1, and this is going to be, of course, that last turn. Actually, there goes Berserker.
Yeah,
he's out
there
of here.
It is.
Goodbye. Pelipper coming in now. That is going to, of course, boost the speed of Ludicolo with the Rain, with the Drizzle, and the Swift Swim ability that Ludicolo typically carries in BGC. And Ludicolo actually going for the Ice Beam here, even with the Rain up, so that is still going to be super effective damage against the Dragapult, not bringing it down to less than 25%. However, the Max Phantasm is going to do enough to knock out the Ludicolo here, so not going to have to worry about an Ice Beam. We know earlier in the day that we saw that Pelipper does carry Hydro Pump on it.
Okay.
So even in the Rain-boosted Hydro Pump, that'll still do a great chunk of damage, but this Life Orb Dragapult has already done, I think, almost everything it needed to in its Dynamax
absolutely.
form.
You know, taking 2 knockouts is really big for Nick without really taking much damage of his own. He did take some damage with that Dragapult, but the Togekiss and Hitmontop are still very, very healthy. Hasn't revealed his 4th Pokemon yet. Now that the Pelipper doesn't have a Ludicolo beside it, it won't be able to take advantage of that Drizzle unless it's firing off those Hydro Pumps. Nick having that fake out pressure with Hitmontop this turn means that it could possibly outspeed the Berserker, which might go for its own fake out, but is a little bit slower than Hitmontop on average.
Yeah, the fake out here for Berserker actually going into that Hitmontop first, so that Hitmontop not going to be able to do anything this turn. The Dragapult here going for the Draco Meteor into the Pelipper, and we are going to have to see exactly how much this does with that Life Orb boost. And that is going to be a Focus Sash Pelipper. There we go. I don't think that's a Ghost Focus Sash there. No, that is that Focus Sash on the Pelipper, so great information for Nick to know at this point in the game. Getting a ton of damage off onto it. The Tailwind coming out from Pelipper now, boosting the speed up on Anthony's side. I don't know if that'll fully outspeed that Dragapult at that point.
It might be close, and Dragapult's a very, very fast Pokemon.
Yeah, and Dragapult really only has 1 turn left with this Life Orb recoil if it doesn't even take any damage on top of everything else that it's going to try and avoid this turn.
It also appears I might have misspoke spoken about the speeds of the Berserker and Hitmontop, because we did see the Berserker fake out first, and then Hitmontop flinch before the Dragapult move. So, it might try to tell you something about how the Berserker and the Hitmontop are trained in this case.
Yeah, that Hitmontop goes back, sending that Togekiss back out for Nick. The Sucker Punch here actually fails, going into that protected Pelipper there, while the Iron Head goes into the Togekiss from Berserker, and that is going to be super effective one-hit knockout damage. So even with all of those Intimidates that, have been stacking up, actually, even though that Berserker came in not having any more Intimidates on it. However, the Hitmontop coming back out, that is, again, more fake-out pressure. So this Berserker probably not going to be able to move this turn, or it goes for the fake-out onto the Pelipper, gets that easy knockout, and then goes for the Berserker. He's got both options here.
Yeah, he does. And again, he still has that fourth Pokemon. The Excadrill, the Gyarados, both very good against Berserker. Rotom Cut as well, be able to put some pressure on it. The Sucker Punch reveal on Dragapult is really cool. We actually don't really see that very often. But it gives Dragapult a way to kind of get an edge in the mirror. If they fire off some Shadow Balls, maybe miss a KO. Nick can guarantee the moving before the opponent's Dragapult with that Sucker Punch.
Berserker goes for the Protect. The Hitmontop goes for the Fake Out into the protected Berserker. So Berserker not going to really take any damage. The Sucker Punch here goes into the Pelipper, so that is going to be enough to knock it out from that one last hit point that it had in its health bar. However, that is enough for the Dragapult. That Life Orb damage, the residual from that, able to take it out. So Nick is now going to have to reveal that one Pokemon he had at the back, and whether he was trying to keep that as, a bit of a hidden information, try and preserve that.
Right.
It is that Excadrill, though, so now Anthony knows that he is packing that Excadrill, which probably is easy to assume if you're running 4 Steel types on your team.
Yeah.
That Excadrill is probably going to be hiding somewhere.
Right. Now, this Dragapult put in so much work. I believe the entirety of the 3 Pokemon that were knocked out on Anthony's side had damage dealt solely by Dragapult.
Oh, okay.
The Durant got knocked out, the Ludicolo took a couple Max Phantasms, and then the Pelipper took the Draco. But, the Dragapult, a huge impact here, even though this Berserker getting some revenge here with an Iron Head crit.
Yeah, that crit was able to take out that Hitmontop. Not really a whole big deal, it seems, at this point. Popping the Air Balloon, though, so now Nick can go for something maybe like an Earthquake or a high horsepower, depending on exactly what type of move he has. And the Tailwind peters out, so that means that Excadrill should probably be faster now. Hopefully, I'm not entirely sure on my Berserker speeds here. I'm sorry.
Apparently, I'm not either.
I didn't really study that one. Yeah, the Excadrill goes in for the
Yeah.
Earthquake here, and that should be enough to take this Berserker out. That is going to take game 1 for Nick in this top 8. So I think now Anthony had the right idea by having the Rancor in the back, but I don't think that Durant is really going to do him any favors in this next game.
No, surely didn't in game 1. And if he does want to use that Durant again, he's got to be very careful with his Dragapult. Possibly not knowing Nick's Dragapult was carrying a Fire-type move, possibly just gambling that he wouldn't, expect Anthony to leave the Durant in against the Dragapult.
Maybe Betamax Guard or something like that,
exactly.
too. There's a lot of options, I think, that you can see here, but I think for Nick, he just has to stick with, I think his 4 Pokemon were great.
I agree.
I don't think he needs to change anything on that. I think he just has to be prepared for the adjustments that Anthony might make.
Right.
And Anthony's the one that really kind of has to take a step back, look at what he's doing, and maybe make adjustments from there. Because I think Nick played that game pretty much as well as he could have.
Yeah, especially in those first few turns. He had a very, very dominant opening 3 or 4 turns of that game. Then at that point, it was just kind of piloting his way to a win and making sure he didn't kind of let it slip away.
Yeah.
So if Anthony's able to kind of get some more momentum in the beginning of the game, that might be a better route for him to take.
Yeah, that G-Max Life Orb, that Dynamax Life Orb Dragapult, something we've seen a ton today, but it's still so oppressive as a Pokemon.
Definitely.
That and Togekiss, I think we've seen so much of them today, and of course so much in 2020 VGC in general, but I do think both of them as Pokemon are so insanely oppressive and so strong, able to run so many different things. Like having the option for Sucker Punch gives you an option for Max Darkness, which is really huge, I think, if you're in Dynamax and maybe you're facing something that wouldn't like to necessarily take a Dark-type move.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't think about that. That's a really cool option. It's kind of cool that Nick is using this kind of old Togekiss, Excadrill, Dragapult core, the TED core, that people were really touting at the very beginning of this format. And, it started to slip away a little bit. I think people generally prefer Sand Rush and their Excadrills to Mold Breaker, just because it turns it into such a fast threat. But clearly Mold Breaker is really good here. And I like the use of Earthquake on that Excadrill because, even though Rotom is typically a ground immune, that Mold Breaker will hit it through Levitate. But Nick also does have those 2 flying types, which will still dodge those Earthquakes, even though it is Mold Breaker.
Yeah, and of course that Excadrill too, having that in the back, probably almost seeming like he taunted Anthony with it a little bit. Like, you really don't want to knock out this Pokemon because then I get my free switch into Excadrill.
Yeah, oh, by the way, I'm still here.
Yeah, oh, by the way, I still have this really threatening Pokemon to 2/3 of your team. I had to do a little bit of math right there.
It's interesting, we didn't see a Life Orb in that Excadrill either, and we did see it switch moves. I think the 3 items you might see on Excadrill would be Life Orb, Choice Band, or a Focus Sash.
Sometimes you see a Assault Vest too.
Okay,
Because especially if you're running something that isn't, you know, that's what I mean, this is
Right.
personal experience. I ran a Solfest on my
Okay.
Excadrill. I loved it.
No, that's a good option too, yeah. So it's good info for Anthony. He knows it's probably not a boosting item on that Excadrill, so if he does have to, you know, deal damage to it, as he didn't do last game, that is something that's got to take into account.
Nick sends out the exact same lead here of the Togekiss and Dragapult, while Anthony goes for that rain lead with the Drizzle, Pelipper, and Ludicolo, so hoping to get that Swift Swim boost up, go faster, not bringing Durant, which I think is the right call that Anthony should have made.
No, I agree. I think if he did bring Durant possibly in the back, but I definitely think that it's a little bit risky into this lead just because you have the redirection option if for some reason the Durant does get an attack off, but more importantly that Dragapult, with that menacing Max Flare, the Durant does have to be careful about it.
Yeah, actually the Dragapult coming back here, not really wanting to take an Ice Beam, I don't think. Sending out the Hitmontop, going to get Fake Out Pressure next turn, and Intimidate, that's not really going to do much to either of these two special attackers, though, on the field. And that, of course, Togekiss not Dynamaxing either, so now you can kind of assume that maybe Nick doesn't have really an offensive Togekiss, maybe it's a more supportive type. While Anthony goes for the Dynamax here, which is probably the Ludicolo like we saw earlier today, and that Ludicolo Dynamax is still pretty threatening.
Oh yeah, Big Pineapple has some really strong moves.
Yeah, he dances really, really heavy.
It's great, I love it. Oh man, like especially if Ludicolo is carrying Hydro Pump, a Max Geyser in the rain coming off a Hydro Pump is incredibly strong. Yeah, we did see the Ice Beam earlier in the first game, and Max Hailstorm, somewhat threatening to the Togekiss, but in that case you would kind of override the rain.
I definitely had that backwards there. I didn't even think about the Max. There it is, the Dynamax Togekiss. So Nick actually could be running a pretty offensive set here, so I think that's super luck with Scope Lens. We didn't really see a whole lot of its offensive prowess last game. So I am interested to see exactly what type that he has here.
Right.
It could have something, it could have that Scope Lens, could be going for crits, could be going for something even stronger. The Max Hailstorm coming into this Togekiss, though, that is going to set up the Hail, do super effective damage onto this Togekiss, and that is going to take the rain away. So now Ludicolo is actually going to be slower.
Right. Oh no.
Oh,
that's not good.
Oh
boy.
That is probably not what Anthony was
Absolutely
looking to see.
not.
His face
Yeah.
on the camera, looking a little nervous there.
This Max Airstream is going to power up the speed of both the Ludicolo and the Hitmontop.
And that is almost enough to knock it out.
Yeah.
And will also take that residual damage from that Hail. That is great for Nick.
Right.
Probably almost hoping for that Max Hailstorm. That's a great information that he kept secret, not having to worry about. Tailwind coming out here for Pelipper, so it is going to help against that loss there from the losing the rain on that Swift Swim.
Right.
However, the Max Airstream already boosting the speeds on both of Nick's side. So, I think a great turn there from Nick.
Absolutely.
Able to kind of bait out that Max Ice type move into the Togekiss and then still have the Intimidate pressure and the Fake Out option next turn.
Interesting choice from Anthony to go for that Max Hailstorm to both cancel out his rain and break his own Pelipper's Focus Sash. I'm sure he wasn't aware of the weakness policy on Togekiss because, that just put him in a really tough spot. This Ludicolo is at really low health, and generally speaking, you really don't want to fake out a Dynamax Pokemon because they cannot flinch, but in this case, the Hitmontop might just want to fake out the Ludicolo just to get a KO. Here it is.
Look at that, there it is.
Yeah.
That is enough for Ludicolo. Going to take that Fake Out. Of course, no flinch, but that is going to be a ton of damage there.
Yeah.
So it is now just Pelipper against both of these two Pokemon for this turn, however, and the Hydro Pump here going into the Togekiss actually connects, does a ton of damage. The Max Airstream, though, I think might just be enough to finish off this Pelipper. And
that's so
speed
strong.
Again. That is weakness policy Togekiss scares me.
Oh yeah,
I think it's in my nightmares for sure.
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of players opt for something like Scope Lens on their Dynamax Togekiss, especially because when combined with that Super Luck ability, you just get the chance for so many critical hits.
Yeah, it's like a 50% chance.
It's insane.
It's insane. And 50% doesn't seem like a lot, but in Pokemon, anything that you want to happen above 40%
it's 100.
seems like a lot.
Yeah.
or it's never.
Right, exactly.
It's always or never. Bisharp coming in here and the Berserker coming back. So, of course, that Steely Spirit ability, like we talked about earlier, might actually be in good effect right now. Something like an Iron Head from that Bisharp is going to be boosted by the Berserker there, unless, of course, that weakness policy Togekiss takes out a ton of damage on either of these two Pokemon.
And since it's at +2 speed, now that kind of cancels out that Tailwind boost, and we know that Togekiss is generally a little bit faster than both Bisharp and Berserker, so it might be a little tough here. This Togekiss often carries a Fire-type move, so if a Max Flare is coming this way, it might be a little bit difficult for these Steel types to hang on.
That critical hit actually from the Fake Out onto the Hitmontop from Berserker, not allowing Hitmontop to do anything, but that Max Flare is enough to knock out that Berserker. Gonna set the Sun back up, making the next Max move even stronger if it goes for that Max Flare. Actually, I think that's the end of the Dynamax here for the Togekiss.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So actually,
and Dynamax an end of its time on the field as well.
Yeah, and the Iron type move there is enough to knock out the Togekiss. However, Nick still has another extra Pokemon in the back. He's
Right.
got that Dragapult and, something else we might not have seen. If it is that Excadrill, I think he's going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, the Excadrill, the Dragapult also, we already saw that Flamethrower, so either a Sun-boosted Life Orb Flamethrower or Fire Blast even, or a close combat from this Hitmontop will be enough to finish off this Bisharp. The Hitmontop already being on the field for Nick is actually a huge blessing here, because now he doesn't have to deal with, accidentally activating that Defiant ability on Bisharp. And even though Bisharp might be able to take one more knockout here, it certainly won't be able to take 2 in one turn.
That Iron Head actually not enough to take that knockout onto the Hitmontop. This Flamethrower going into the Bisharp, that is enough for the knockout. So Nick is going to move on to top 4, so we will be seeing him in either of our top 4 matches today. That is going to be the end of the run for Anthony. However, we do want to congratulate Anthony on bringing such an interesting team to top 8 and for performing as well as he did today.
Right.
I think Nick really he has one of those really common teams.
Right.
I don't want to say common as if it's a bad thing.
Right.
It's a team where, you practice with it, you know what it does. People should know what it does as well.
Right.
But some of the Pokemon he has on there, you can really switch those moves up.
Oh, definitely.
You can have a Dragapult that seems like, oh, here's Dragon Darts, Phantom Force, Dragon Dance, Protect.
Yeah.
And you can throw something really tricky on there.
Or you can run Flamethrower Sucker Punch.
Yeah, exactly. You catch people by surprise,
Yeah.
which is so fun, especially when you have something like a Max. When you've got a Dynamax Pokemon and say you use a Max Darkness with a Dragapult, everyone's like,
what?
What Max move is
what's
that?
happening? Yeah.
What do I now have to worry about?
Right.
Now I know there's a Dark type on this Dark type move, but is it Sucker Punch? Is it maybe something else?
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting as well that Nick is able to use those. And actually, that weakness policy Togekiss not
That was really good.
In game 1
Yeah.
was huge for him in game 2.
Definitely great management there from Nick. And even if a team is common, even if that same team of 6 is running around, it's common because it's good.
Exactly.
And there's never any shame in running a good team.
Yeah.
Especially if you can make those tweaks like you were talking about there.
Yeah,
So,
and if you're comfortable with a team like that, there really is no reason not to run it.
Yeah, we saw that with James Evans yesterday too. That's a team he's been running for a while, probably a month or so now.
Yeah, he ran that in New York City, and I commentated that to New York City, and I said, what does Keyberry Gastro do? And then coming in
win mid-seasons, apparently.
I interviewed him twice yesterday. I'm like, I know what Keyberry Gastro does now. I know pretty well. I know exactly what it does. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that is going to do it for us. We will be back with the interview with Nick, I believe. Actually, no. We're
I
not
don't think
doing
so,
interviews.
yeah.
We're actually going to speed through top 8 and top 4s as quick as we can to get you to finals, so I do apologize for doing an interview. However, we will be back as soon as we can, so stay tuned.